Welcome to part 2 of Group Three's presentation on urban runoff. I'll pick up where I left off regarding NPDES permits. These permits are issued by states or tribes with primacy or by EPA regions in states or areas that are not granted primacy or sovereignty, as it's sometimes referred to. Once issued, the permits set the limits on effluents and what can be discharged in terms of pollutants, the water quality monitoring and reporting requirements, including schedules for conducting that monitoring, and any additional requirements to protect water quality and community health as seen fit, depending on the type of activities occurring under that permit. And sometimes the permits also include generic best management practices, which is referred to as BMPs. And through the application process, there's a public notification and comment period that is required so that the community can voice their concerns, and those must be addressed. Those concerns must be addressed. And so any exceedances of limits set by the permit result in enforcement actions, and that could include anything from administrative orders to correct the exceedance to monetary penalties or even civil and criminal actions, depending on how egregious that exceedance might be and if it was knowingly exceeded and purposefully exceeded. So for construction activities, NPDES permits ensure that proper construction site BMPs are used to manage any runoff that could move away from the site. And so these permits are required for construction sites of 1 acre or greater in size, or for areas that are less than an acre if that construction site is a part of a greater development plan or sale plan. So think of like a community that's being built over several acres, but it's going by parcel, by small parcel. So, depending on the location of these projects, the permits administered by the EPA or by the state. Again, that goes back to primacy or sovereignty. And there's EPA resources available to determine the need for construction NPDES permits, which is really helpful. For industrial activities, a permit covers stormwater discharge from many industrial activities, including manufacturing, mining and oil/gas exploration processing, landfills and dumps, and metal scrap yards, salvage yards, and things of that nature, as well as haz waste treatment and storage facilities and disposal areas, facilities where equipment is maintained or cleaned or stored, as well as many different types of power generating plants that use steam to create electricity. And there's a greater list as well, but in the interest of time, we won't cover those. And then when we talk about MS4s, that's the stormwater drainage network for municipalities and includes counties as well, and some larger facilities such as hospitals, prisons, or public universities. So there's 2 phases for that, the MS4 NPDES permits. Phase 1, applying to large counties or large cities or medium-sized cities with greater than 100,000 population. And then, like I said earlier, there's phase 2 for smaller areas. And so basically this requires the development of a stormwater management program that is intended to minimize pollutant discharge into the receiving waters and describes the stormwater control practices used to meet the permit requirements. And so to conclude, we'll wrap this up by relating our points to a landscape scale. Mostly the NPDES permits are covering point sources, and oftentimes urban runoff is considered a point source because it moves through an MS4 and to an outfall to the receiving waters. So essentially, as humans develop areas and urbanize them, this increases the amount of surface runoff due to the greater amounts of impervious surface. As precipitation falls on that impervious surface, it picks up any chemical constituents, sediment, trash, and bacteria from pet waste or human waste, and many other things that, of course, are pollutants and damage the quality of water in that receiving water. In addition to this, the increase in surface runoff can also lead to erosion of the stream bank, and this could also, the surface runoff could already have a high amount of sediment in it from construction sites or industrial sites. So there's, as you can see, it becomes a pretty complicated web of interactions pretty quickly, especially given how sporadic and distributed um, uh, uh, precipitation events can be over time. And so this really makes it a challenging issue, especially given how much urbanization has occurred prior to us humans prioritizing um, managing our urban runoff. And so here are resources, and we just want to thank you for listening to us today.